friend of mine who used to serve as the priest down in Ithaca describes Halloween as the most quintessentially Christian holiday. In fact, I think that this trend now with some church trunk or treats where you're supposed to only dress as something sort of friendly or lovable, she would say poo-poo-poo to that idea, and you'll understand as I describe the way her rationale for Halloween being the most quintessentially Christian holiday. She described it like this recently in a podcast. We dress up like the scariest thing we can imagine, and then set off to the homes of people we don't know, hoping for treats. Then, in spite of us looking like really scary things, or something people don't even recognize, like any of the K-pop demon hunters that came to my house last night, those people do give us treats, good things. It's unmerited grace in action, she says. Halloween demonstrates the heart of the Christian faith. Grace we haven't earned is put into action. Tonight, we're about to move. We're in between the second and third days of what is often called a fall triduum. If you're familiar with those 3 days in Holy Week known as a triduum, Good Friday, Holy Saturday, and the Easter Vigil, this is sometimes called the fall triduum, the 3 days of All Hallows Eve or Halloween, All Saints, and then All Souls, its more historic name. And there's an interesting historic bridge between these holidays and the way that the Christian faith grew in the Middle Ages, particularly in Ireland and Scotland, historic home and place of origin for our denomination as Anglicans and Episcopalians. In those parts of the world, Ireland and Scotland, in say the 800s or maybe as far as into the thousands or 1100s, this time of year outside, this way that we're moving from fall into winter, had been understood as a time when our lives, the lives of the living, and those in some kind of afterlife, that whatever was the veil between us was especially thin or porous, and that those who were alive might feel at that time of season a special kinship toward their loved ones who had already died. So when the Christian missionaries find their way to those parts of Ireland and Scotland, they essentially build on that idea as a way of explaining what saints are and how we believe that those who die in the faith are still present to us in a sense. I recently heard the well-known CNN actor Anderson Cooper also invoke this idea of our loved ones who have gone before being present to us still. He shared it with another well-known person, late-night host Stephen Colbert. Anderson Cooper's father had died when he was pretty young, as I understand it, and Cooper has been public in talking about how once he became much older as an adult, almost into his 40s, he began to realize that he had never been able to grieve his father's death. He hadn't really gotten to know his father that well, and he really could see then later in his 40s that he had just sort of pushed all that grieving away. And so in wanting to learn more about his dad and also in doing the work of grieving him, he realized and said to Colbert that night, you can have a relationship with someone who has died. That's exactly how he said it to Colbert, and as I inferred, that he said on his own podcast. He went on to say, I believe that my father is even in some small way getting to know these young children that I've had so late in life. I believe he started his family around 50 years old. We affirm, as he said this to Stephen Colbert, who has been rather public about his own faith and a devout Roman Catholic, Colbert looked back and forth at him with this kind of twinkle in his eye, and the Episcopalians couldn't help but also see and hear there what we affirm every Holy Communion. You'll hear it come tonight before the Sanctus, that opening part of communion where we sing, Holy, 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 God of power and might. Before that, we say we're going to lift our hearts with all the company of heaven. Every person who has died might choose from their place in the afterlife to be present at this communion with us. I believe this evening, if we were able to see immortal bodies, that we'd learn it's actually very crowded in here right now. Maybe beloved Hope Metcalf, or Diane Lamon, or Ruth Gibbs, or Kelly Todd, or my own parents, or anyone that you know that has died at any time is more present to us during our service of Holy Communion. And if they could talk in a way that we could understand, I believe they'd want to remind us of the gift of unmerited grace, because it can so deeply affect how we live day to day. That this unmerited grace is available to us both in this life and in the world to come. That we haven't earned God's loving care, and yet it's available to us at all times and in all places. And it's even offered to people when they cross from this life into the next. Even if they've never met Jesus and have no idea what he was up to during their life, or even if they hated or maybe turned from the church or the faith, the unmerited gift of grace, I believe, is still offered to them when they're in the next life. I pray that we are able, just a bit more and more, to live our lives mindful of that faithful witness of so many who have gone before us, mindful of the gift of unmerited grace.